Welcome to our solar electric trailer journey. We're so glad you've joined us today. We've recently taken a trip to Plains, Georgia while driving our Chevy Bolt EV and towing our Aliner Scout pop-up trailer. We have 7 lessons that we want to share. Stick around for lesson number 7, in which we will share the cost per mile.
Yeah, this was a fun trip. We camped in Albany, Georgia, about 45 miles southeast of Plains, so it cut the distance for us from Jacksonville a little bit, so that we could not have to travel quite so far towing, and it worked out just beautifully. They're about 45 miles from Plains.
Yeah, it was a very easy trip to get up there. If you haven't already seen last week's episode, I recommend going back to watch that, because in that episode we talk about our visit to Plains and the sightseeing which we did. There's a lot of history in that little tiny Georgia town, and it's where former President Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind still live.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was really a lot of fun. So this was our longest trip, as Gail said. It was 210 miles each direction, so 420 total miles that we spent towing our trailer.
This was the longest trip we've taken so far while towing, and we were anxious, we were excited to do this trip and give it a try. And lesson number 1 is unhitching to charge.
Yeah, we were so fortunate on this trip. Both directions, different charging locations. We were able to charge without unhitching the trailer. So that brings our average to about 40% of the time we're able to charge without unhitching when we're towing. And boy, it really is nice when you can.
Yeah, because you're not dealing with the weather at all or wind, and you just get in, charge, and get out. And we really quite enjoyed that. Another charging lesson, a second lesson that we'd like to share with you, is doing 1 charge per day.
Yeah, we were able to do that on this trip, which is really kind of important, and it's sort of a recommendation we'd make to EV travelers.
Yeah.
If you can limit yourself to 1 charge per day, the day is pretty easy. That does limit how far you can go. For us, in the Bolt, towing, that's about 220 to 230 at the extreme miles. On this trip, 210 was no problem at all. With a little bit more patience on our charge, we could have gone a little bit farther, but still, 1 charge per day makes for a really comfortable day of travel.
So comfortable to do it that way. I recommend that to anybody for your trips. This was the longest trip we'd taken with the solar panels on our Aliner Scout. And we were a little worried, not too worried, but a little bit worried to see how they would do on this trip. Lesson number 3, the solar panels did just fine. No problem whatsoever.
Yeah, Gail's right. We were a little nervous, eager to see how the solar panels would hold up. We'll put a link to our installation for the solar panels so you can see how we did that, but we're very thrilled to report that they hold up just fine.
So lesson number 4 is charging in the campground.
Yeah, we were thrilled and are thrilled to report that using the 50 amp charger, the 50 amp connection in the RV park worked great. We were at the Albany RV Resort, and so our campsite had a 50 amp connection that we used for the car to charge that up, and it charged it up very quickly. Our car charges in about 10 hours on that connection, so that was great. And then we also had the 30 amp connection for the trailer, so that was great. So really charging in the RV park worked slick as a whistle for us this time.
Yeah, just plug in at night and go to sleep, and then you wake up the next morning and you're ready to go. The 5th lesson is a pro tip for campground charging.
One of the keys is to be sure to plan ahead, because not every spot in a campground will have a 50 amp connection and a 30 amp connection. So if possible, you want a spot that has both, so you can plug the trailer in on the one hand while you're also charging the vehicle on the other hand. And so you want both, and so check to make sure that the campground offers both and that you reserve a spot that has both.
Yeah, we learned that the hard way. We went out camping and didn't have a 50 amp charge, so we couldn't charge the car, and we were pretty low. So that is a lesson we learned the hard way, and we will never forget to do that again. It was very easy to tow our trailer with our Bolt. No problems whatsoever. It was smooth, but we do need you to remember that Chevrolet does not recommend towing with the Bolt. So lesson number 6 is the lesson about the mileage that we were able to achieve.
Yeah, so we were hoping for a little better than we got, quite honestly. We're traveling a mix of freeways and back roads, and we were hoping to get 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour on average. We got about 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour on average, so a little lower than we'd hoped, but still quite good. That's better towing with our Chevy Bolt than an EV pickup truck gets empty.
So lesson number 7, the one you've been waiting for, is what did it cost us per mile on this trip?
So towing the little Aliner with our Chevy Bolt, we were able to keep the cost to 6 cents per mile. It was a total cost for this trip of $23. That includes the cost of charging it back up when we got home. We made an estimate of what that was. So still very, very inexpensive per mile cost for the fuel, if you will, for this trip.
Makes for a fun vacation.
Sure does,
Hey,
and a cheap vacation.
Yeah. Okay, we've talked about the solar panels that we've installed on the trailer, and driving down the freeway and driving on these side roads, we had absolutely no problems with these solar panels, but we did learn a lesson.
Yeah, the lesson we learned is we have a lot to learn.
Yeah, there's so much to learn about those.
Yeah, so we had some clouds, rain on this trip, and we really weren't able to use the solar power at all. So we've got a lot to learn to figure out how to optimize the storage and the batteries and the use, and how we use our appliances, et cetera, to really optimize and stretch the use of the solar panel, solar power we have in our vehicle.
And as soon as we learn, we'll be sharing that with you. Thanks so much for watching us today. We hope you've learned a lot. Bye.
When we heard our Rivian wouldn't be delivered until Christmas of 2023, we decided to see what we could tow with our Chevy Bolt,
Launching our solar electric trailer journey.
We have a lot to learn, and we're sharing what we discover along the way,
We've added solar panels to our Aliner Scout pop-up trailer.
preparing us for doing the same on a bigger trailer when the Rivian arrives.
Join us by subscribing now.